Welcome to the Whitestown Redevelopment Commission meeting. Would like to go ahead and call the meeting to order. So, first of all, we'd like to have a roll call with Dax, if you could scream away, please.
Here.
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 Howdy.
Here.
Perfect. Now we would move along to the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on, we do have a few guests this evening, and next item on the agenda would be a public request to speak. We didn't receive any cards, but I'd like to open up the floor if anyone would have the opportunity to speak about anything.
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to give a quick EDC update if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Molly Whitehead, Boone County Economic Development Corporation. As you all hopefully remember, we want to appear before the elected and appointed bodies on a quarterly basis just to give you a quick update over what we've been doing on your behalf and where we see things going in the future. We're pleased right now where we stand with lead activity. We actually ended with 80 leads at the end of the quarter in June. That's actually the same number we had this time last year. So we saw a much busier quarter 1 than we did quarter 2. However, the good thing about that, we're actually tracking well ahead on announced projects, including one of the projects from tonight. We're at 11 announced projects year to date. I'd say about 5 or 6 of those are from Whitestown. So continue to see impressive growth there. Comparing that to 2017 as a whole, we had 14 wins for the county. So sitting at 11 by half the year indicates we should have a hopefully good rest of the year ahead of us. That represents $137 million in capital investment, more than 900 new jobs, and we estimate about $9.2 million in property tax impact and $1.8 million in lit impact over a 10-year period just from those opportunities. So even though leads have maybe just stayed the same as previous years, we've seen good projects announced, good companies come back into town for site visits. We've definitely seen increased site visit activity lately as well. As for what else we have been up to, I think I've mentioned previously we received a Duke Energy marketing grant that's specific for Duke Energy territory, although that does cover the legacy core area of Whitestown. So we've been working actually with Edible Indy on getting some ads placed in there to try to drum up some interest for potential new restaurants, for looking at that legacy core area and how can we place some more unique restaurants in that area. So we'll be launching that in the August-September timeframe, and that's several media buys that we made there in addition to other work that we'll be doing for that. And then in regards to placemaking, Megan's got a few projects kind of on her plate, but one idea that she just started to move forward with yet today is a hammock park. What that basically is, it's, I don't do a lot of hiking, but apparently these are popular among trails that you set aside a small little pocket park, put up your posts, provide some hammocks, or people apparently provide their own hammocks. So she's targeted an area in Whitestown in the Legacy Core area that she's moving forward with that to get that kicked off here in Boone County and then hopefully spread out from there. So excited to have that going too. Happy to answer any questions or concerns that you may have.
Thank you, Molly. Any questions for Molly? So you talked about 11 announced projects for the year. Congratulations.
Definitely
a team effort from everyone involved,
Yep.
obviously. So what's the breakdown between expansions and new investment to the county?
Oh, great question. It might be probably 60-70% new growth, smaller number of expansions. We've had more expansions in the Lebanon area, more new growth here in Whitestown. So yeah, without breaking it down, that's what I would guess.
Well, no, that's great. And I've also noticed an uptick in wages as well, too, from the projects that we've seen announced. So
Yeah, the average wage for these deals that we've closed, Boone County-wide in 2018, the average wage is close to $26 an hour. I I did the median wage just to see if that would make any difference, and that puts it at like $24.50 an hour. So we're seeing some really good opportunities, really good companies that are coming into town and paying higher wages.
And what was the total new jobs committed?
Over 900 this year.
Has EDC thought about a labor availability study too to kind of show, or is that anything that's been under discussions?
We've contemplated doing it for this year. At the very least, we'll be due to do one next year. Our latest one we did was it's a couple years old at this particular point. We do an annual wage and benefit survey. We'd be happy to make those results available to you all as commission members. We do that wage and benefit survey free of charge to any company in Boone County that wants to participate in that. Obviously, we're not a terribly large community, so we don't have a ton of companies that participate in it, but I think we had 19 companies participate this year. I want to say 4 of them were from Whitestown. What we've seen typically as a result of those wage and benefit surveys, once that goes back out, usually we have 1 or 2 employers that actually do take a serious look at their wages. And we had one company about a year ago raise their wages $3 an hour to stay competitive. We've seen some significant growth or jumps in some Whitestown companies in the past as well, just by seeing some basic data that says, hey, you're paying at the bottom of the barrel if you're having retention problems.
Yeah.
Maybe that might help. So that went out in late May, early June. So
Thank you so much.
yeah,
We
thank you. Appreciate it.
Moving on to the approval of the meeting minutes for June, we had 2 meetings. One was on June 4th and also hosted a special meeting to revisit one of the line items for Economic Development Project on June 11th. So interested in entertaining a motion for one or both at the same time?
Mr. President, move the adoption of both minutes as presented.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? If not, we'd go ahead and open up for a vote. So those in favor in approving the meeting minutes for June 4th, 2018 and June 11th for 2018, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. Motion carries. Seeing no presentations or no unfinished business, we'd like to go ahead and move on to new business. And under item A, we have to consider resolution approving the deduction application for an area previously designated as an economic revitalization area for Triform LLC expansion, which is RDC Resolution 2018-22. Have the resolution in front of us, but
Mr. President, pardon my appearance. I know it looks like I'm going to the beach, but I have a quick meeting after this. So, this is an expansion. So you and the council have already approved abatement for the majority of the square footage of this building. Triform GDI, Fishback Creek Business Park. They're already going ahead with plans to expand the building. So this is just the abatement on the expanded portion of the square footage. Simple as that.
traditional 10-year schedule.
It's what the abatement was, what the deduction was for the other portion of the building. So yes,
What will the total square footage amount be?
I think we're now at. I had it in my head. I think we're at 800. I think it's 800,000. Right? 1.1. Oh no, that's the original. 1.1 million. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, 1.1 million. Yep. Trying to compete with the Amazon building, I guess.
Hopefully there's some potential
There
leases
is.
in mind.
There actually is a potential tenant very interested in the site. So.
Thank you, Dax. Any questions? Have the resolution before all of you. It was also uploaded beforehand, so you had a chance to review. But any further questions of Dax? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. President, move the adoption of RDC Resolution 2018-22.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? If not, would like to go ahead and entertain a vote to approve RDC Resolution 2018-22. So those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. Motion carries. Moving on to item B is to introduce a resolution of the RDC approving and authorizing the execution of amendment to the financing lease and approving the amendment to the municipal facilities lease relating to the town of Whitestown, Anson, South Maple Grove Economic Development Area, which is RDC Resolution 2018-23. And we are just introducing this tonight. That is the longest title I think I've ever
Oh, it
read.
can get worse. They can get worse. Just real quick, this is, we're considering new facilities, one of those being a police station on this site. This bond also includes the purchase of a fire engine or truck, fire apparatus, which is nearing the $1 million mark at this point from a build-out perspective, believe that. And then the payoff of the Maple Grove ban that we used to do a lot of improvements on Whitestown Parkway. So this is the initial stage as an introduction only, which you, sir, just so exhaustively did. So that's the only action that needs to be taken tonight. It'll be back in front of the council yes, it's in front of the council. And then there'll be other items back in front of you.
Public hearing.
Yeah, there'll be a public hearing back in front of you. Portion of this, so the majority of this is to be backed with, or debt service we'll use public safety lit. So, because it's a public safety facility, backed by TIF, backed by property taxes. So, that's why it's in front of you.
As Dax said, this is introduction only, but any immediate questions? Or if not, if anything comes to mind, please don't hesitate to reach out to Dax or Dennis or I guess members of the council. Volunteering you, Clinton. So,
I didn't quite catch that one.
volunteering you for if anyone has any questions too.
Sure, I'll answer whatever you need, especially about fire apparatus.
Seeing no questions or concerns, I'd like to go ahead and move on to the second to last item, which is item C, which is to consider a resolution approving the real property tax deduction application for area previously designated as an economic revitalization area for Tempe Industries, which is RDC Resolution 2018-24. You also have a couple documents in front of you. One is from Molly Whitehead from the Boone EDC. It's you just heard earlier for a presentation, gives a great description of the project. It is recommending a real property tax abatement, which would be over a 7-year period at a 60% flat rate, correct? Which would provide savings in a little over $200,000. But if there's any further discussion about the project,
It's a pretty simple project. Both the neighboring companies have received abatement from us as well in Walter Payton Power Equipment and RPM Business Machines. It's a good company. It's their first location in Indiana. You've probably seen their trucks, especially in the fall. I'm sure you've seen a lot of them in the fall carrying grain to and fro. And we thought this was a good, Molly and I worked together closely on this incentive, and we thought this was a good incentive for the company this time. And they agreed, and staff would recommend that you approve this resolution.
it's about 12,000 square feet and 14 jobs.
Yeah, it's about 12,000 square feet, 14 jobs. But there's always that element of, or always that possibility that they expand to do additional things in our state. And so this is a good first start for their first location in Indiana.
So are they constructing the grain hoppers here?
No, so what you do is the equipment comes here. They're all custom. There's no. What they do is you don't get to go to the showroom and pick out your favorite.
12,000 bushel.
Yes. These people are coming and picking up this product, and it's being basically finished at this location. Now, they could drop off an old trailer and sit there for a while, but this is right from the factory direct. It's a factory direct company. This is the location where it comes and sits, and you come pick it up. If you're a farmer and you need it, and it's not just farming. They carry stone and gravel. They carry gravel and other items. It's not just a farming equipment that they build for. multiple different industries. But that's what this facility is. So they're hiring some pretty high-end people to finish assembly, finish the product, work on the product, and then get the product out the door.
But it's what you just said is past grain hoppers in kind of the world of agriculture.
What's that?
Land. You had said that there's landscaping, gravel, and
They do. They build products that carry much more than just grain.
oh, okay, carry it. Okay, all right,
Yeah,
okay.
their product carries. They're everywhere through different industries that would carry a product, that needs hauled, dumped somewhere. That's what they're finishing the product here.
Gotcha.
Yeah, good company.
Yeah.
You've seen them, you just don't know it. And spell check hates them, so Tempty.
Right.
Good luck getting past spell check on it, especially on your phone.
Any additional questions for Dax? What we have? If not, I think it's an excellent project. It's nice to continue to diversify the types of companies that we have here. And as we hit on earlier too, definitely an increase of the average wage for the county. So I think that would be a good thing. If there's no further questions, would entertain a motion for RDC Resolution 2018-24.
Mr. President, I move the adoption of RDC Resolution 2018-24.
If we have a motion, is there a second?
I second. I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, would go ahead and entertain a vote. So those in favor of approving RDC Resolution 2018-24, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. Motion carries. I think Clinton is the MVP for all the motions this evening. All right. Good job.
Just trying to be efficient about our business, Mr. President.
I appreciate it. Efficiency is good. So then second to last item is to item D, which is to discuss the RDC funding for workforce transportation.
So right now we have the Whitestown Connector. It's a workforce commuting bus that provides a route from essentially 86th Street, Traders Point area, downtown Indianapolis area to get people up here to work. Amazon helps fund it. I'm sure that Andrew and I'm sure that Serta can get up here and probably speak better. I'm just going to introduce it and then I'll let, if you don't mind, them have the floor. It's a federal grant. Plainfield has a similar program. Federal grants run out, as we know. You have to reapply for federal grants. Federal grants expect local matches. Amazon provides some money. We've had this discussion, and people certainly it's becoming a very heated topic, believe it or not. Of we have all these jobs, we provide incentives to companies, and then we have to do we as government subsidize the commute as well? Where does it end? So this is a very good topic to have. The reason why it's on your agenda is that Dennis and I have spoken, and there is a way for the Redevelopment Commission to help fund the commuter connection, if you will. So, Andrew, you want to come up and kind of give both where we are, why we are, the impact of what it does, and then we can talk about funding.
My name is Andrew McGee with the Central Indiana Regional Transportation Authority. So I thank you for entertaining a discussion right now on continued funding for the Whitestown Connector, which I'm going to let Philip give a little more details about the current role of the service. But it is a very pertinent service that we're seeing ridership from folks who want to get to jobs in Whitestown. Unfortunately don't have another alternative, so they are using this as their way to get to work, and then the employers are also utilizing this as a way to keep their employment pool steady, because obviously turnover and retention is, they don't want high turnover, and want to retain good employees even when they are having troubles with reliable transportation. But Philip, the mobility manager for the project, is going to talk a little bit more about stats, ridership, and where we've been and where we're going.
Pass this over to everybody. Good evening. Thanks for having us here this evening. Andrew's passing out a record of ridership since the inception of the connector. We started the connector in July of 2015, and it's been operating 6 days a week since then. It operates every day except Sunday. We start service at 5:15 in the morning, running till about 10 in the morning. Take a break because that's kind of a low demand time of day. And we pick up again about 2 in the afternoon and run till about 8 in the evening. And as Dax mentioned, this is really just getting people to Traders Point. This is leveraging off of the Indigo service. A typical rider would take the Indigo service to Traders Point and transfer to our service to get up here. It's a rather arduous journey. People who take it typically don't have other transportation options at their disposal. We're going to be doing a study later this summer, doing some questionnaires of typical riders. A study that we did in Plainfield last year indicates that more than half the riders spend 90 minutes each direction getting to and from work. So this is a service that it's no frills. It's intended to provide basic transportation for people who want to work, who want to get up here to work. They work hard, they put in the full day, and they have 3 hours of traveling to and from their job in order to make this work. Now, the federal grant that initially funded this, that Dax mentioned, it's scheduled to run out approximately the first quarter of next year. It was actually timed to last for 3 years, and we actually stretched it to make it last almost another year, but we are coming to the end of the lifespan of that grant. So that's what's triggering our conversation. We've had some conversations with Dax over the past few months trying to strategize how to keep this running. I want to stress that from the beginning, we've always conceived of this as an economic development tool. You all know more than I that labor access is becoming more and more of a key factor in recruiting and expanding local businesses. So this is one tool that we have offered, and hope that you will see fit to help us continue to operate. I'm just basically going to answer any questions you all might have about service. One thing I do want to clarify, we do not directly operate the service. Instead, we contract out the service. For 3 years, the service has been operated by a company called Go Express. We recently rebid out the service, and starting this month, it's now being picked up by another company called Miller Transportation. So you're going to see some different buses on the road than you have in the past. If you've noticed those, that's the reason why. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the service. It's heavily seasonal, but it has been showing steady growth. We did have a bit of a slump last year because there was Amazon changed their shift schedule, and our service was a little off time. Once we realized that, we retimed the service, and ridership started to grow again. We also, at the same time, expanded the service, and we now serve the industrial areas on the west side of 65, coming down Indianapolis Boulevard, so we've added a couple of stops there. We had enough slack in our schedule to be able to accommodate that expansion, so I'm going to stop talking, otherwise I'm going to just ramble on all night. But what questions do you all have?
So if I'm looking at your trends, it seems that during this current time period, you would start to see a slight incline, and then around October, you would see the spike.
Yes.
But it seems that in this past July, you started to dip back down again. Is there any reason for that?
That had to do with the retiming of the service. We actually, it takes several months for a trend to become apparent, and we started noticing in April or May that we were having a bit of a dip,
Okay.
more so than had been the case in the prior couple of years. And that's when we opened the conversations with Amazon and got the shift schedules worked out. And then once we did that, it typically takes a little bit of outreach to the employees to notify them of the changes and let them know that the service was perhaps more suitable than it had been in the past.
So your expectation then is for the rest of 2018 is going to look more like what it did in 2016 versus what we saw in 2017.
That's correct.
Do you expect the spike to be as high as the near 1,800 in November?
It varies on a number of factors. There are multiple Amazon plants throughout the metropolitan region. Ironically, our Plainfield services serve another 2 of the Amazon plants. And the degree to which temporary employment is utilized at each plant, where training is conducted, and how they make alternative transportation arrangements seems to change a little bit from year to year. So I'm hoping that it continues to spike as high as it has in the past. But until Amazon finalizes those arrangements, we don't necessarily know how we're going to be impacted.
I'd like to add, I know we keep talking about Amazon services open to all employers. So we do have other usage, GNC, restaurants.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I was asking, because if I understood correctly, you just recently added some other stops on the west side of I-65, which wouldn't have been on the route back in October, December of 17?
Correct. It was only serving the all points business park only.
Until June, until summer of.
So the thought is even if Amazon ridership is lower, those extra stops would then push it up to the 18 or more?
Yes. And as you know, that area continues to grow. We may see another stop or 2 being posted out there as conditions emerge, knowing how the site layout's going to be and when everything becomes built out and filled up.
And that answers my main question. I was curious if this was the Amazon connector or if this actually serviced other companies throughout the area, seeing where the spikes are and everything. But what is the cost for ridership?
The cost per rider varies per time of year. This time of year in the summer, it can be quite high. Over the entire year, it averages about $19 a trip. However,
A trip or round trip?
per trip. However, the more trips you get, the costs are fixed. So the more ridership we get, the lower the cost per trip goes. During the holiday season spike that you see there, it gets to around $9 per trip.
So with the funding, projected funding, would that cost go down, or will it still be the same for the riders?
Well, he's talking about a cost per rider. The total
Yes.
costs we're expecting to stay flat. In fact, our rebid that we recently did gave us some pretty favorable terms, and we're hoping to keep the costs steady, which in an era of rising fuel costs and wages is a nice thing to be able to say. So as the ridership continues to go up, the cost per rider should go down. All of the costs that Amazon puts in and that we're asking of the town go towards the service. CERTA's administrative costs, I'm not sure if that's getting also what you were asking, but our administrative costs are borne under separate sources of funds and don't come out of us.
And the cost for the contractor, we bid that out as an hourly rate.
Yeah.
So that's where the vehicle riders cost per trip.
Getting back to cost, is Amazon the only company that contributes in the town?
Currently, yes.
What's the charge per rider?
$1.
Each way.
And that's over and above what they pay Indigo for the cost that they do.
And then with these numbers, is this per round trip per rider, or is this one way per rider?
Those are one-way trips. So there is an interesting, and one of the things we're hoping to get out of the survey, ridership tends to be a bit higher in the morning than in the afternoon. And this matches up with other experiences and the workforce connectors in Plainfield. It's generally harder to get people to work than it is to get them home. Once they're at work and they're interacting with their coworkers, they may ask for a ride to a bus stop or maybe go out for a social engagement after work, whereas in the morning when they're dispersed and at home, they don't have those options to collaborate and be able to combine their resources.
Is there any incentives for round trips?
What's that?
Is there any incentives for round trips?
Not currently, no. No, I'm afraid not. We don't have really any, like I said, this is a bare bones service. We don't have any way to be able to track whether people are making round trips currently.
Okay. So it's not like a punch card or?
We do have a punch card, but there's not a fair discount.
Okay.
It's just more of a convenience factor. Cash, 100%.
It also allows us to be able to do promotional events where we're giving out the cards.
And one item to add about subsidizing the employees' commutes. Public transportation is very similar to roads. Public transportation operates off investment into the service. We've seen with some other services where grant funding is running out, that we have to raise the costs to the point of breaking even, then it becomes too high even for people who have a choice, called choice riders. Let alone when we're talking about folks who don't have a choice, transit-dependent riders. That's kind of looking at it as more of a public investment into infrastructure, like roads, would be public transportation as well.
There's also something to note that people who use the service, as their economic condition improves, we've noticed that some of them do purchase automobiles and stop taking the connector. It is an arduous journey. And then, they're replaced by other people, so there's this continuous cycling through, but we like to think of it as part of a ladder of economic progression.
What was the federal grant that you applied for and received?
It was a congestion mitigation and air quality grant.
How much was that for?
It was for $720,000
Okay, 720.
Per
and
year
that's
or all 3 years combined?
for the total grant, and we've stretched it out to nearly, what's that? No, it's 725, 180.
Wait,
Yep.
total.
The federal, yeah, the federal share was 720, but with the local contribution, it came out to 900,000.
And is that specific for the Whitestown connector, or is that for other projects as
That
well?
was specific for the Whitestown connector. At the beginning, we were putting our costs, CERTA costs, out of that grant as well, but we've since had some other funding sources that have enabled us to offload those costs and dedicate the sources for the service.
And how much corporate investment have you received for this? From Amazon?
Amazon,
It'd be $180,000 over the course of the grant, and they have made a commitment, verbal commitment. We don't have a new MOU, but they are willing to continue that $60,000 per year.
Can you give a little bit of background behind Workforce Transportation as far as when you were founded, and are you a nonprofit organization?
Well, CERTA, Central Indiana Regional Transportation Authority, we are a government entity.
Okay.
We are organized by state statute. We have a board that's comprised of elected or appointed officials in 10 counties, so Marion County, Boone County, all the surrounding counties, Marion County, and Delaware County. We started the first workforce connector, which would be the Plainfield. We call it now our South Plainfield connector. July 2012, around that area. So that was the first one operating under similar grants, CMAQ funding, congestion mitigation, air quality funding, and have been operating that since. That grant run out for that service as well, and it is now operating off of an EID
Economic Improvement District. And the Workforce Connector program is one of service programs. We also operate a rideshare program for carpool, van pool, emergency ride home matching, and all of the participants who ride the Workforce Connector and have a participating employer are eligible for the emergency ride home, so that if they need to get home in the middle of the day, or if they have a sick kid, or if they're sick, we'll provide a taxi voucher for them at no charge.
And then SIR also does organizing of rural transit providers for the area. So Boone County, Boone Area Transit, Boone Area Transit, Boone County Senior Services, along with the other rural transit providers as well. So Workforce Connect is only one piece that SIR does, but certain folks are doing.
Thank you.
With the funding received thus far, is that enough to go ahead and continue the service for another 3 years?
We're anticipating that the contract that we have just rebid is sufficient for pricing for the next 3 years. So if we keep the funding at the levels that we had been, that should be enough for the next 3 years of service, yes.
And how much addition would you request from the town?
The service costs roughly $220,000, $230,000 per year. So we had put in a request for $200,000 a year. That was prior to the rebid, so that's still a little bit in play. But we were asking for an upper ceiling of $200,000 a year, realizing that it could come in at less than that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's with the Amazon TJ.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Any further questions?
Not on the service.
Well, Andrew and Phil, I definitely appreciate you guys taking the time this evening to talk to us a little bit more about the Whitestown Connector. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any additional topics to bring forth for the commission this evening?
No, Mr. President, I move you, we do not adjourn.
Motion.
I will second.
I don't think we need to discuss that. I'd like to go open it for a vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.